So I actually am going to do things a little bit differently, because I always do. It's just the way it is. I actually want to incorporate you, the audience, sooner rather than later. So as Reverend Sam and I are speaking, I'm sorry, Pastor Sam, he just told me, but I'm just going to call him Sam.
Please.
I may even call him Sammy.
Por favor.
Because you like that.
Indeed.
But I want to open it up. So if there's something that we're talking about and you're just like, wait, just raise your hand and we'll bring the microphone to you, because I really want to make this as conversational and as interactive as possible. And I'm really pleased to be here with you, Sammy. I mean, it's not often that I get to be on stage with you, one-on-one, asking you some pretty interesting questions.
No, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
And Sammy looks great. He's a very young man to be
Thank you.
Such an influential leader in the United States of America, representing about how many Latinos?
20 in America, 20 million approximately, 40,000 churches.
Okay.
A little over 40,000.
So when you go to sleep at night, are you like, damn?
Nope, quite the opposite. No, really.
What do you, when you go to sleep at night, you say?
It's my faith thing. So I know I'm here by the grace of God. I know it's beyond me. So it's not really a me thing. So it's really beyond me. I actually go to bed at night going, good Lord, I hope today I made a change for the good. And that's my prayer.
So the way I'm going to start, Sammy, is actually to give a sense of a little bit of context for the audience that may not know a lot about Latinos in general, and we're going to speak about Latinos in general, but first we're going to deal with the fact that you're a Latino evangelical, that you represent about 20 million Latino evangelicals. So I'm going to give you a list of things, and literally I just want you to be like yes or no.
Okay.
Just yes or no.
Okay. And some of them may require a little bit more. So
No, I don't know about that. You can
Okay.
say yes or no, and I want to say more, but then I want to, okay. So the wall.
See, this is
No. Okay, wait, so the other thing you can say is, I can't say yes or no to that.
I can't say yes or no to that because it's a complex issue with a very multifaceted response. So it's a wall and a bridge. So it's,
No, but I'm asking you about the wall. Actually, I'm asking you about, do you support
Yes.
the construction?
Yeah, be it a physical wall, virtual wall, infrared, satellite imaging, yes. But with a great gate and door and a bridge. So a great gate and door to those that want to come in here legally, indeed, and then simultaneously a bridge towards the Latino Hispanic community. So a wall in itself exclusively, no. A wall with a massive gate and a bridge, yes. See, I have to qualify it, so it becomes complicated. Okay. It's going to be a high-maintenance relationship.
Feminism, yes or no?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
I have 2 daughters. You got to be kidding me. I have no choice.
Fight for 15.
Not yes or no. I'll get into that.
Okay. More government in the sense of services. So a government that is more kind of proactive in delivering services, yes or no?
No. A more efficient government, yes.
Okay. Abortion, a woman's right to choose, yes or no?
Abortion, protecting the innocence of life. I am staunchly pro-life. At the same time, I am a strong feminist. How about that? And that's the dichotomy. That's what makes us unique as Latino evangelicals.
Wow, that's complicated.
Yep.
Okay.
And if you want, I'll explain it later on.
We will. Public education, increasing funding for public education access.
As a former teacher, I am a staunch supporter of public education. I would love to see, working with the College Board and Coleman and others, I would love to see higher standards, indeed. What Bush and Obama advocated for.
Immigration reform, massive immigration reform.
Oh, absolutely, as expeditiously as possible.
Detention centers, what I call detention camps, yes or no?
What are detention centers? What is that? What's that concept?
So is that a no?
No, of course, it's the 21st century, no.
So a no?
No.
Okay. Obama.
Love him. I disagreed with the number of his policies. I didn't like them, loved them, and still do.
Love this. Donald Trump, yes or no?
Donald Trump, complex, right? And the answer would be this. Watch this. This is going to be, again, watch this. I disagreed within a great amount of his rhetoric. But, and this is my faith optic guiding me here, love him. Pray for him.
Love him as you love this person or this person or this person.
Indeed. We're called to love.
Okay. Donald Trump, President Donald Trump. Yes or no? Not about your faith, your love for common humanity. President Donald Trump. Yes or no?
And I supported George W. Bush. I supported President Obama. And I want President Donald Trump to succeed. I do.
Which would mean that he should be successful at deporting about twice as many people as the deporter-in-chief.
Wanting him to succeed.
That would be
means,
Obama.
Wanting him to succeed, let me define success. And it's going to take an incredible amount of faith, but that's why I am who I am. Bringing the nation together inevitably, changing the tone of culture, addressing issues that recognize the image of God in every single American, every single human being around the world, confronting the issues of poverty and urban decay, increasing and helping, strengthening our educational system, educational equality, bringing an end to the immigration melees, passing comprehensive immigration reform, which means not separating God-fearing, hardworking families. That's my utopia. So my heart is I'm going to love the man and pray for him to succeed in these arenas. Whenever he speaks to an issue or whenever he advocates an agenda that runs counter to my Judeo-Christian value system, I will be the first one articulating my opposition. And I have, respectfully, but I do it with respect and with great due deference.
What's going on for you today? There's a headline that I just heard about. I don't know if you heard something that the president said regarding a fellow journalist from this morning. No?
I saw that in passing when I arrived at Denver airport, so I'm not privy to the specifics of what took place.
But when you see something like this, and for those of you who have been here and not connected to the other world, the outside world, to the real world,
right.
President Trump said something about Mika Brzezinski. Right. Basically, there was a long thing that he said, but essentially, as a woman,
MSNBC, Joe Scarborough.
Yeah, Joe Scarborough's wife or future wife. But what he said was, as a woman, he said something like, and she wanted to come and meet me in Mar-a-Lago, and she had just had plastic surgery, and she was bleeding all over. And it's like...
No, I mean, there's...
So actually, I want to know, when you hear that...
Gastritis.
Gastritis.
Yeah, indeed.
Gastritis, okay.
Gastritis. I mean, you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear that. You can't just give a blanket endorsement for anyone, right? We have to have the maturity enough to say, here, even when I was a part of Obama's advisory team for the Fatherhood Task Force and so forth, there were issues that he would speak into, not rhetoric. He was very, fine-tuned, one of the most articulate presidents we've ever had. But there were policy issues I disagreed with him, and I would do it respectfully. When you hear this from President Trump, you would prefer not to hear it. The Pollyannish worldview would be, please, por favor, no diga nada, no diga eso. Don't tweet it, don't say it. That would be the great thing to do. But he is who he is. What do we do? What do we do for the next 3.5 years? Do we just close our arms and we have, I know, I get it, the whole quintessential proverbial resistance movement. Let's resist. But then we have to digress to what took place in this election. The rhetoric was there before November. People heard it, and yet they elected him. We have to go deep into why America pivoted towards Donald Trump. So, I respect those that want to engage in this, unbridled resistance movement. I am a pastor. I have a faith worldview. And I believe that light overcomes darkness. Martin Luther King Jr. would say, if you don't engage, you can't change hearts and minds. You have to be present at the table. If you're not there, what gives you the right to demand a change? So rather than protesting out here and abandoning or engaging in complete resistance, I want to engage even those I disagree with. And I want to engage them in civility and mutual respect. Even if you disagree with me, I'm going to respect you because you are created in the image of God.
So there's this thing that we have in Spanish. There's a particular saying that says, pena ajena, which is that you feel like shame for somebody else. Like, ooh, I feel shame for you, and you don't even know it. And I have to tell you, I am not a Latina evangelical, but I have great respect for theology and for people's faith, and I am a very faith filled person. I don't think I could do what I do if it were not. But there is something that happens when it's like, wait, Latino evangelicals, Latino and Latina evangelicals talk so much and reflect so much about this really precious moral center.
Indeed.
Right? And then, because I've spoken to many, many Latino evangelicals in all of my reporting, I don't understand how you can have that kind of moral center, have that position of being a feminist, a father of 2 daughters, and then also say at the same time that Donald Trump, I mean, you gave the inaugural prayer,
yes. The first Latino, the first evangelical.
At his inauguration. And so people have said
Wasn't that ironic?
Yes, I think it was ironic, and actually I think a lot of people were really upset about it, and you know that.
Do you know,
Pastor
in
Sal.
all truth and full disclosure, I mean, with integrity, I'm obsessed with that concept, right? Be authentic and transparent. I thought I was going to get massive pushback from my community. Quite the opposite. When I read what I read, if you heard what I read, I pastor a multi-ethnic church. I don't do politics in my pulpit, ever. I can't. Half my church voted for Hillary, half my church voted for Donald Trump. So I don't do politics. I would be unemployed. So I don't do politics in my pulpit, ever. The support I received because of what I read, in the spirit of how I read it, that you were the, and I'm not, but what you shared was the hope of the event. That idea of love and truth and grace and God blessing those that are persecuted and disenfranchised and marginalized. So I still to this day believe it was a God thing, indeed, that I was there.
So it's an interesting thing. I mean, I didn't get the interview with Obama. I didn't get the interview with Hillary. Didn't get the interview with George W. Did interview Bill Clinton. But there is a sense that, that this is political, in fact. And people do see you as a very political person. And people did, you know, as I was prepping for this, they talked to me about how could Pastor Sam be in that space?
Because I want to heal. I want to be present. Because my two, Christ over all things, my two guiding sort of ideological mentors from afar, historically, Billy Graham and Dr. King. Bernice King is a dear friend. I've spoken at Ebenezer Baptist Church for their anniversary, first Latino in American history to participate in that amazing gathering. And Dr. King's his admonition, his exhortation, you have to be present. You have to be present. They would say, why are you meeting with? And he would say, you have to be present. You can't change hearts and minds if you abdicate, if all you do is protest. So you have to be present. I want to be present. I want to see our nation healed. Again, you may call me naive, call me immature. I have this Pollyannish sort of utopia worldview, right? But I believe in it. I believe we can bring people together, but you have to be present, even with those you disagree with. So I'm there. And in full disclosure, I've met with the president, as you well know, on a number of occasions. And I'm not here to defend him whatsoever, but when you are alone with him, one-on-one, es otra onda, which means, otra onda. It's
a totally different thing.
It's a totally different thing. It really is. He's very affable. He listens amazingly well, very engaging, and he has given me nothing less than respect. Even when I have disagreed with him on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News, when I've disagreed with op-ed pieces, but I do it respectfully. I just want to come back to this idea of civility and mutual respect. It sounds like kumbaya, but I want to get back to that place where we can disagree with mutual respect. I disagree with you, but as a Christian, I would say, I still love you and respect you, and I see the image of God in you.
And I think as a journalist, I have to approach everybody who I speak with a heart of God. Right?
Indeed.
I have to be able to see myself in the person who I most disagree with. But, and we will move on from Trump, and I do, again, want to say, if there's something that you're like, I want to, raise your hand.
Real quick, if I can, you mentioned about, the Supreme Court decision, and even in my intro and some of the bio out there, it says, Latino evangelicals are this group that's socially conservative, pro-life, against gay marriage, they disagree with the Democratic Party. So this is what makes us unique. Dorothy, we're not in Kansas anymore. Look, we are not the normal white evangelical. We're not.
Normal white.
No, 87%
Regular.
Republican vote.
Okay.
All right? That's what it is. So we're not that group, and not speaking disparagingly about the white evangelical community, neither are we the African-American born-again community, 92% Democratic vote. We're right there. We're complicated. We were the first evangelical group in American history, do your due diligence, to launch a global campaign in the early 2000s against the persecution and prosecution of the LGBT community around the world. There were African nations passing laws to imprison, some of them to execute, members of the LGBT community. The first evangelical group to rise up and say, that is so anti-God, so anti-Jesus, so anti the image of God, because every single member of the LGBT community is created in the image of God. We're going to launch a global campaign to come against this, and Christians need to rise up. At the same time, without denying our biblical commitment to biblical scripture, as it regards to the sacred definition of marriage between one man and one woman. You can say, how can you have it both ways? Because we can. Because we can be both righteousness and justice. And that's what makes us unique. We're not Republicans. We're not Democrats. We are the fastest growing religious demographic in America. And I predict Latino evangelicals will be the quintessential independent voting bloc.
They are, I mean, having reported about Latino evangelicals in Central Florida, it is a fascinating community.
Indeed.
And you cannot box it in any way, shape, or form. And actually, before I go to this moral question, I want to tell you that, for me as a journalist, this is a particularly interesting time. I like to say, kind of like a joke, kind of because it's true, that I am 5 things that this particular president doesn't like. I'm Mexican, I'm an immigrant, I'm a journalist, I'm a woman, and I'm flat-chested. So, full disclosure and transparency, right?
And he awkwardly drinks his coffee.
You're supposed to be drinking water.
Perdóname, I know.
You need to drink water for the altitude. It has made things challenging for a lot of us. And I'm wondering when you're talking about love, and I love that, Sam, because I think that I am the same way. Many people say to me, how can you talk to that person who did this? And I'm like, because I'm a journalist and that is what I do. It's kind of like our work. But there is something that is happening now where people are questioning how you can have it both ways at a time when probably many of your congregants or some of your congregants are saying, pero Pastor Sammy, they just came and took my husband last night.
Oh, I know.
Right?
Oh, no.
How do you manage that part of, are we now at a point for our community, which is what I witnessed in Alabama, where the community is there to stay, but basically they start every day, I'm sure you start every day like this too, which is they start every day praying that they do not interact with the police or with immigration. And that is what our faith is now. Like, ay, que no llegue la policía, ay, que no llegue ICE, por favor, que no llegue Jesucito, por favor. There's something beautiful about that and something terribly sad about that.
I want you to imagine, and it's not, I don't have a messianic complex, even though I was raised in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. But I don't have a messianic complex at all. But here I am, right? I'm one of one right now there, meaning that has this God-ordained access. Y si no? What if not? What if I would not have that access? The fact that I can speak to this administration and say, please hear me out. This community is a beautiful community. The immigrant community overall, but I'm speaking about our tribe. The Latino community is America's greatest blessing in the 21st century.
Did you say that before he said the bad hombres thing?
No. I did not meet with him until June.
Okay.
Until June, and there were attempts on behalf of the administration. We want to meet with you, and at that moment, I just didn't feel it was the right time. I thought I'm going to use terms. My prophetic role was more to speak with a counter narrative, to build a firewall and say, no, our community, the immigrant community, is a beautiful community. We will enrich this nation indeed. And so I was creating a wall against extreme and harsh rhetoric, and attempting to even convince the Republican Party do you realize you're alienating the constituency? You alienate this constituency, you're done. You won't see Pennsylvania Avenue just from across the Starbucks across the street, that's it, because you're done. You're done. So it was my job and my assignment to say, here are the philosophical, ideological optics of the community that create some inroads. Ironically enough, let's say the numbers are correct. Let's say they are. And there's a debate there. I get that on the exit poll numbers, 29, 30%. Some
So
say
the exit polls, which I don't buy, are saying about 29 to 30%
That's correct.
voted for Latinos and Latinas voted for Donald Trump. According to Latino decisions, in full disclosure, that have also worked for Hillary, but I trust their numbers a little bit more, about 17 to 20%. Whatever it is.
Right. It's still a lot more than anybody else.
When you're being kind of frontally attacked and you're like, I'm still going to vote for you.
Let's assume for a second, just hypothetically, that the exit polling is correct. Let's assume. That's more than Romney, 27%. Mm-hmm. More than Romney. Of the 29...
So you're going to take the 30%. Okay.
Watch this, just for now. Out of the 29, 30% of Latinos voted for Trump. 29, 30%. Best case scenario, worst case scenario, however you want to look at it, 17, 18%, right? 66% of the 29 to 30% self-identify themselves as Latino evangelicals. That's the call I received the next morning. Blew me away. 66%. The majority of Latinos that supported Donald Trump are from the Latino evangelical tribe. I want you to put that in perspective. Why, in spite of, in the midst of, the rhetoric, be it perceived or real, however you want to look at it, how in the world can this community, and hence the issue going forward, the Republicans have a party with race, the Democratic Party has an issue with faith, and both of them need to find solutions, viable, measurable solutions in the 21st century in order to engage this community in a sustainable manner. If not, it's going to be an interesting reality, political reality going forward.
What do you think? Is that a statistic that makes you feel what the 66% of Latinos who voted?
It surprised me. It surprised me. I thought it was going to be less than 50%. It surprised me. In Obama's 2012, it was right on the line, 49.7, 50% of Latino evangelicals supported Romney and 50% supported President Obama. So it was split. Now, we don't want to go back to George W. Bush in 2004. That was 44% of Latinos supported George W. Bush. You had like close to 70% of Latino evangelicals supported George W. Bush. But he spoke the language of community. He engaged the community he was just a different breed, right? My point to you is this community, without that community in Florida or Pennsylvania, Donald J. Trump may not be in the White House right now.
So Latino evangelicals in Florida and Pennsylvania
may be responsible for the president today occupying the White House. Now, don't shoot anything. Don't send, don't do anything negatively. Don't do anything. It is what it is. The question is why? What drove them to vote for this man? What were the driving mechanisms in spite of the rhetoric?
I'm asking the question.
It's the whole Sunday pastoral Monday mornings. Just overwhelming.
So why?
Great question. I'm glad you asked.
I mean, again, I am trying because I have spent a lot of time before and after the election out there in the heartland, right? And I have met many Latino, Latina Trump supporters, and I tell people, look, you cannot put them in a box. But I'm trying to understand what was the issue.
The Supreme Court.
In other words, Roe v. Wade.
I think the obsession. Again, you have to understand.
Well, wait. When you say
I don't even know of Latino evangelicals who wake up in the morning and go, "We want to overturn Roe v. Wade." I don't know of one.
Well, but when you say the Supreme,
it's more on yes. The Latino evangelical community, according to Pew, is a very staunch pro-life. I believe in the beauty and sanctity of life in and out of the womb. I do believe every single child is created in the image of God. I believe in that, without a doubt. But with that being said...
Okay, hold on.
I'm not going to get into it.
I just need to know so that we're all clear. So, and I hate to do this, but I want clarity for me. So every conception is in the eyes of God, including in a rape?
No. It's not that God permitted that or facilitated that or wanted that. I believe every single human being, every in and out of the womb, has God, purpose, and potential.
I understand. Regardless I'm asking you a very specific question.
And I hate the idea of incest or rape.
But let's ask that because it happens.
I believe in the beauty of the image of God.
You're not answering my question. If a young woman is raped or a victim of incest,
Uh-huh.
does she have the right to have an abortion? Yes or
Does
no?
she have the right?
Do you
Legally
believe,
in America? She does right now, yes.
Do you believe she has the right to do that?
I believe that that beautiful woman, should have a revelation of the beauty inside of her, in spite of how that beauty arrived there. It's the sanctity of every single creature, every single human being, from the womb to the tomb, by the way, is created in the image of God. And we, as Latino evangelicals and Latino Catholics, we do have a strong pro-life ethos, a very strong pro-life ethos. And I don't distance myself from it at all whatsoever. I think we need to go beyond the punitive consequences and look at it from a different worldview. Neither do I believe in this whole sort of radical, any pro-lifer that is against a woman is spiritually ignorant and intellectually naive, because we don't understand the circumstances that led that woman to have that abortion. So we don't look at that woman at all with malice, with ill, with how dare you, quite the opposite. With love, we don't understand why you made that decision, but we love you. And we affirm you and we validate you. I have so many women in our church who have been through that process, and they have never heard a negative term coming from the pulpit about the decisions they made in their past.
Okay. Again, I can't believe that you're not burning with questions. Yes, we have a question.
You know, I am Latina, and I am chairman of Casita Maria Inc., the oldest Hispanic charity
based
in New
where?
York. And
New York.
I was hoping that this session might really highlight the issues that are facing Latinos as opposed to Trump all the time. And clearly, if somebody's an evangelical Christian, they believe in the sanctity of life. So, you know, so I would really like to hear, one, why are so many Latinos flocking to evangelicism? Evangelicism is the greatest growing religion worldwide. Just forget about it.
It is.
And I think that people forget that President Bush did win because of the Latino vote.
True.
And I think the Republicans make a mistake always by excluding it. But we had a Democratic Congress under Bush, and Bush wanted immigration reform, and they blocked him. Obama basically did nothing for immigration reform. And I think the big issue has been immigration reform and jobs and anyway, and education.
So your question is, why do you believe, why do you, Rev Sam,
Yeah.
Pastor Sam, and it's a beautiful question.
And also, what is the biggest issue facing Latinos today?
So why are they being drawn to the evangelical church, and what is the biggest issue?
It's the shift from, and by the way, it's not from atheism or Buddhism or agnosticism. It's shifting over, in full disclosure, from Catholicism. It's from Catholicism. Because we never experienced the Protestant Reformation until the 1970s and 80s. Let me explain. This year marks the 500 years anniversary of the Martin Luther Protestant Reformation, Wittenberg, Germany, October 31st, 1517. This is the year, right? 500 years post facto. That Reformation never hit Latin America to the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. How about that? The amount of evangelical churches in Latin America were de minimis. It was all Catholic, 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 Catholic. All of a sudden, the evangelical explosion via the conduit of evangelists like Billy Graham, denominations that spread. Primarily, the number one reason why evangelicalism is growing is because of the Pentecostal charismatic movement.
Which means, for people who have never been in a Pentecostal charismatic church versus a Catholic church in the Latino experience, just real simple, just kind of break it down for us.
It's just the theology that says that healings and miracles happen today. And the same God that they read about in the New Testament, where people were healed, that same God does the same thing today. That's the charismatic Pentecostal movement. So the praise is very vibrant. The preaching is very animated. It's very empowered, very exciting. It engages the heart, the head, and the hand. So yeah, it's the fastest growing, even in the Catholic Church, by the way.
And it's pretty fascinating if you go into a charismatic evangelical Latino church. You will not fall asleep. I mean, it's kind of extraordinary what you experience, including people being cured, people speaking in tongues, people dancing, singing, a rock band, which is what I saw in the Bronx.
Oh, yeah, indeed. Rappers?
Rappers. So, okay, and to answer the compañera's question, and what do you see as the central, most pressing issue facing the Latino, Latina community?
We know, because we had a survey. We NHCLC with Barna, we conducted a survey. We asked, and we thought it was going to be immigration number one. We did, because immigration impacts our churches. Approximately 37% of all members of Latino evangelical churches are undocumented. Put this in perspective. If this government deports 11, 12 million people, we would lose close to 40% of our churches. I mean, we would shut down churches. So our number one thing is to get people to know Jesus as Lord. So we would definitely hinder our mission if deportation would take place. It's not just being self-serving. We go way beyond that. It's just the right thing to do, to integrate people here, not to separate families. But with that reality being stated, 37%, immigration we thought was going to be number one. It's not what the survey said. Education and jobs. Education and jobs. I was surprised, because my money was on immigration. Education and jobs. Education, jobs. Educational equality. You may say, what about education? I'm speaking on behalf of our tribe here. There's this issue where we as Latinos believe that we receive an educational product in the inner city where we have, this is true story, 7th and 8th graders Latinos reading Dora the Explorer, while the white counterparts in the suburbs are reading Chaucer, Jeffrey, and you gotta be kidding me, and Shakespeare. So there is an educational disparity that has to be addressed as expeditiously as possible. So educational equality, higher standards. Don't dumb down our community, man. Higher standards for all. For all. So it's education, and then it's jobs. It's about jobs. It's about jobs. It's about jobs. It's about the economy. It's about jobs. I know our mobility rate is higher than African Americans as it pertains to the middle class. I get that. But it's still about jobs. So it's immigration, it's educational equality, jobs, and it's immigration reform.
So 25% coming right at you. 25% right now, 1 out of every 4 kids coming into kindergarten or pre-K are Latino now. That is a huge story for us. And that's where you're saying there want to be, I mean, if we're 1/4 of every student, we need to have more access and more education that speaks
equality,
to us.
absolutely.
All right, we have a question here. Yes.
Carlos Fernandez, thank you very much. One question, climate change. Given the fact of being, the number one threat to our planet, and given the fact that 25% of our country, 1 in 4 is Latino, what do you think the role of the church should be on climate change?
The role of the church should be speaking prophetically into what we call creation care and stewardship. Stewardship. I believe Christians should be the number one advocates in taking care of the environment, in addressing issues. I believe in climate change. I mean, obviously, climate change is for real. It has taken place. I mean, you can't deny that, right? I'm a faith and science guy, by the way. So I'm an evangelical Trekkie. I have to put that in perspective. There's a wing of evangelicalism that is more on the fundamentalist side, and that's not me. I'm a math, physics, quantum physics, faith and science guy. I'm a Trekkie. With that being said, yeah, we have a biblical responsibility to speak prophetically to making sure that Christians rise up as the primary voice to be viable stewards of God's creation indeed. And we need to make that a priority. I think we negate that and we believe it's just for one political ideology. Every single Bible-believing Christian should stand up and say, we have a moral, God-given responsibility to take care of his creation, without exception, and address climate change and acknowledge it.
We're going to take a question right here. Thank you.
What exactly are you doing in your work to help the climate change specifically, not just talking about it? Are you getting your followers to follow signs, have clean energy, and clean cars and things like that?
Actually, all of
specific things.
All of the above. We have what we call our stewardship directive that speaks specifically into, we call it creation care. Into creation care. It's just different terms. So we are there advocating, asking the emerging generation, the millennial generation, to address these issues of integrity out of a biblical worldview. We actually have provided sermon outlines that enable them, that empower them in their weekly devotionals to understand the reality that unless we address this as expeditiously as possible, we're going to have some egregious consequences in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And we frame it all within the optics of biblical truth. The increase in poverty, of course, as we see the water levels increase and the melting of the ice caps, what this means economically, as we are so committed to bringing good news to the poor and alleviating poverty in the name of Jesus. Well, poverty will increase at a very accelerated rate if we don't turn this around immediately. So we give devotional outlines, we produce videos and so forth. We are very fully committed to creation care.
We have a question here. These are great questions, you guys.
See, that's
You're
what-
so smart.
That's what makes us different. You can't pigeonhole us in one silo. That's the anomaly of the Latino evangelical community.
And it's growing. What rate is the Latino evangelical
It's the
community?
fastest growing religious demographic right now, but right now it's 20%. And the numbers looking for 2050 is it will be the majority, I don't know how that's a pretty strong term.
Right.
The majority of Latinos in America will be of evangelical persuasion.
Fascinating. Yes, Marina.
Thank you. My name is Leticia Peguero, and I work in a foundation, and I'm very aware of some of the issues around education and jobs. That's some of what we focus on. So I'd love to know how, if those, in the survey, the research that came up as the biggest issues, how does the church then translate that into having people understand the policy implications, right, of, for example, the vote that they took,
Yep.
And the policy implications of actually education, the issues of education and jobs, and how it impacts low income, or predominantly Latino communities. I'm just really curious how it goes from sort of theory, right, numbers and research, to the actual policy implications and the understanding that the congregations have.
So you have educational equality. If we look at the survey, educational equality, education, higher standards, and you look at economics, and you look at immigration reform, and in that list was religious liberty and so forth. I call it the rubric of 5, and just 5 particular areas. And then you look at the vote for Donald J. Trump, and you would say, how in the world do you reconcile this sort of priority list with Donald J. Trump, 66%? How do you reconcile that? Again, because behind all of that, this community, never staunchly Republican, never staunchly Democratic, this community is saying, wait a second, what took place in the past 8 years, respectfully? As people of faith, there were Supreme Court decisions that took place that ship already sailed, but nothing was done to protect religious liberty. And the moment there's a perception that there will be an infringement of what I can and cannot preach from the pulpit, and because faith is my number one driving force. Again, it's a Latino evangelical. You wake up in the morning, what do you say? Am I Latino first? You say I'm a Christian first. Latino evangelicals wake up in the morning.
Can you define religious liberty? Because I think it's a term that within the evangelical community you use a lot. But I think out there in the other part, people are like, what are you talking about religious liberty? Don't we have religious liberty?
Well,
and what is the Supreme Court? So just kind of concisely put that together.
So
people
beautiful. Religious liberty is, of course, our constitutional right. It is our right. But to be defined privately and publicly, when Supreme Court decisions take place, where subsequently at a state level, you have policies and proposed legislative initiatives that will infringe. Let me give you an example. In the state of California, where I come from, SB 1146, Senator Lara, he proposes this idea. All these religious colleges and universities, if you don't embrace the reality of the Supreme Court decision, if you don't change your polity and your policies to embrace same-sex relationships in your campuses.
Because that has come down from the Supreme Court.
If you don't embrace that, and by embracing means you can't have policies that say, we don't want our young people having sex outside of marriage and so forth. And if you don't change the policies, you will lose every single grant, which in essence will shut down these schools in the state of California.
So when you're talking about religious liberty, that's basically...
No, that's one of the issues.
Okay.
That speaks to one of the issues. So can't we have it both ways? Why not? Why do we create a world of dichotomies? It's always this either or world instead of both and. So the Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage. It happened. Why can't we simultaneously defend religious liberty and say, like I met with one of the leaders of that led the constitutional amendments, or that countered the state constitutional amendments opposing same-sex marriage. I met with one of the leaders privately here in Colorado who looked at me and said, Rodriguez, I want to help you. We want same-sex marriage at the Supreme Court level, which we believe we will achieve. This is before the decision. He says, but I am afraid that some on my end will go too far and infringe on your religious liberty to believe what you believe and to preach what you preach from your pulpit. One of the leaders of the movement said, I'm afraid we're going to go way too far. And what took place was this angst created of that ship sailed. We respect that. But are you going to infringe? And then some of the laws emerging of If I read a chapter from the book of Romans in the state of California, somewhere down the road, that may be deemed as hate speech, you gotta be kidding me. So it's that fear, whether it's perceived or real, whether it's viable or not, that fear of, you're gonna shut me down from believing what I believe, that has been a belief for 2,000 years, or beyond that, even in the Old Testament, for 4,000 years, and you want this to change overnight, and if you don't believe it overnight, you're a bigot and you're a hateful person and you discriminate. That prompted Latinos to say, man, I can't stand that man's rhetoric. Oh, man, can I have. But I want my kids to be able to hear from our pulpits what they need to hear in order to have a viable relationship with God. And we don't want to sacrifice truth on the altar of political or cultural expediency. So we're going to vote for religious liberty. The Supreme Court trumps Trump. That was, in essence, the statement that led many Latino evangelicals to support his candidacy.
And this conversation about religious liberty is something that you talk about pretty often in...
I do, because it's a concern. I ask, what's your concerns? We're worried about this. We're worried about this. And I really would have desired, again, I did not like President Obama. I love the man. I did. If you look at the YouTube video, after I prayed, I turned around and we broke protocol, both of us. President Obama was there. He stood up. And I did not walk to President Trump, and I did not do that disrespectfully. I served this man. And my eyes swelled up because I didn't like him. Absolutely love him. And the First Lady, Michelle Obama, a rock star. One of the most amazing first ladies we've ever had in American history. Indeed, without a doubt. One of the best. I worked with her in addressing childhood obesity and the Let's Move campaign, and a beautiful woman, brilliant woman, created in the image of God, just a great leader. So my point to you is, I wanted President Obama to do more.
I think a lot of us wanted President Obama.
And by the way, immigration reform, when he didn't pass immigration reform and he focused on health care, when I asked Latinos, why did you vote for Trump? Why would you vote for Trump? And they went, because we like President Obama, pero nuestra comunidad nos falló. And he took health care over immigration.
Which is what I wrote down here. You talked about the Republicans alienating, and I wrote, Democrats alienated. I mean, this is a huge conversation. I want to give you a statistic. About 1 out of every 4 Latinos would be prepared to vote for a third party or a write-in candidate.
Indeed.
1 out of every 4 Latino voters now would be prepared to do a write-in or vote for a third party. So it's a pox on both the Democrats and the Republicans. We have a question right here.
Hola, my name is Francisco. My family is from Chile originally. I live in North Carolina. Are you aware that homosexuality at one point was illegal, not just in this country, but in the world? That the term faggot came from a group of sticks that was used to burn homosexualities publicly, and that Christianity has had years and years, I mean, going back at least 2,000 years of privilege in this country. And that what seems to be, or interpreted as an attack on religious liberty, is just a curtailing of the privilege that Christianity had in this society and in others. Are you aware of that history?
I am aware of the fact that we live in an uberly polarized society and nation. And I am aware of the fact that there are great differences ideologically and philosophically around these issues. And the more we exacerbate and elevate the differences, the more we continue to build that wall that we so staunchly oppose as a community in regards to Donald J. Trump. I am also aware of the fact that on the left and on the right, even those on the left continue to build these walls of separation against ethnic communities. Are you aware of the fact that unless the Democratic Party doesn't have a come to Jesus moment, African Americans are going to start turning, and Latinos are going to turn away and say, we're going to abandon this party, because it is an undeniable reality in the African American and the Latino community that they believe in the biblical worldview of marriage as a sacred union between one man and one woman, while simultaneously repudiating every single vestige of homophobia. How about that? That we can be both and. We can. We can believe in a sacred definition of marriage while repudiating every single vestige of homophobia and protecting the God-given rights of the LGBT community around the world.
You don't look convinced, Francisco. You're like, I'm not so sure.
How
We have
about
a
that?
question in the
Because
back.
it's who we are, and it's the biblical mandate. So, así corremos, and that's why you can't pigeonhole us. You could be both in.
Okay, hold on.
It's. I know, but it's me and the way vast majority of Christians around the world.
I want to remind everybody that Mexico City was one of the first that legalized gay marriage, and this is Mexico, which is the highly Catholic country that, you know, the city where I was born in that legalized gay marriage, and it's like, how is it? And it's kind of like, well, we can do both.
True, and I want these wonderful people created in the image of God, my brothers and sisters. I want the leaders of the LGBT community to meet with evangelicals and Christians and say, okay, we got it. We got same-sex marriage. Now, what's your anxiety? Really, what is it? What is it? We're not going to turn back the clock. We're not going to reverse the Supreme Court decision. That's done. So what's your anxiety about religious liberty? ¿Qué es? Let's have a conversation. Let's find a place where we can have a conversation.
It's interesting because you went right from kind of gay marriage immediately to religious liberty, and I was like,
Totally
hold on,
associated.
Okay, hold on. We could stay here, but I want to there are questions coming up. So let's take your question, yes.
Hi, my name is Jamie Miller. I'm with the Aspen Institute, and hi, Maria.
Hi, Jamie.
And Pastor Samuel, I thank you for coming here. I really appreciate it, and I think it's so valuable that you're bringing this perspective here. So thank you. My question was briefly alluded to, and I really am not trying to ask a question about Trump. It's not about that.
I think it's okay.
No.
You're Jamie Miller. It's okay.
No, I don't. That's actually not what I want to hear about or talk about. But I do want to hear about what you're doing with undocumented people or families in your community who may be seeking a safe place or who may be concerned, or how that's playing out among your own congregants, not necessarily on a policy level, but the experiences that people are having and how you're dealing with it. There's the law and there's a community, and I'd love to hear about some experiences that you've been having.
Thank you for having
Thank you,
me.
Jamie. And also just to add on to that, the whole question of sanctuary.
Yeah.
And the fact that we know now that ICE immigration agents, the story that I'm working on right now, plain clothes, ICE immigration agents going into a courtroom to take someone. So this was thought that this would never happen. It has happened. And so the thought that they could come into a church is a possibility.
Good luck with that.
So where do you stand?
Good luck with. I mean, really, you would have pushback on steroids.
So answer Jamie's question in terms of what are you doing with that?
So Jamie, I can't. I know you want me to focus on the local church level, but I can't without addressing the macro, which means without getting into the minutia and violating my ethical commitment not to disclose information. We are attempting nationally to pivot. Dear Mr. President and his corresponding administration, do not separate God-fearing, hardworking families. And it's beyond just a do not. So let's just say 24/7, we are fully engaged in attempting to make sure that the president's words on 60 Minutes and in his Time Magazine interview and other Fox News interviews where he said, I will not separate good families. We are holding him accountable to that commitment. And that's my clarion call. Because cada vez that I hear that we are privy to, and we have some intel out there, that someone that had nothing to do with, no one involved in nefarious activity, no mero salvatrucha, no gang member, a good God-fearing person was deported, let's just say that we immediately attempt to intervene, without a doubt. It's not what he promised, and it's not the right thing to do at all. So at a local level, we are educating our parishioners. This is what you need to be aware of. This is what you need to know.
Know your rights.
You need to know your rights. And by the way, if you need help, here we are. So my church is open 24/7. We call it a safe haven. If you are aware of something taking place that will jeopardize the sanctity of your family, our church is open. And we have people, we have our security personnel, people ready to serve and to protect. And we have rooms ready with supplies ready for people, because it's not the right thing to do. Again, it's horrible, it's horrific. And the idea of ICE coming into a church, seriously, I'm not being facetious or arrogant. Good luck with that. Just good luck with that. The pushback, not just on behalf of Latinos, the pushback on white evangelicals, the 87% that supported President Trump. Without white evangelicals, President Trump wouldn't be in the White House. Do you realize that white evangelicals are in favor of immigration reform and do not want 11 million people deported? Because it is the fastest growing segment of their denominations?
Right. Right. If they don't have that community, they don't have a future.
It's the future of American evangelicalism. You are deporting the future of American Christianity.
But Sammy, you know, because we know, those of us who are out in the community, that actually at this point, you know, all of those hard, fast criminals have been deported, right? I mean, if we have millions of undocumented immigrant criminals, we don't have an immigration problem. We have a policing problem. We have a police problem, not an immigration problem. But those of us who are in the community know that overwhelmingly the stories that you are hearing are about people who have no criminal record.
But you have heard as of late a decline, and I'm not saying it's because of us. I'm saying these stories are becoming few and far between. Not an anomaly necessarily, but they're becoming few and far between in comparison to a few months ago when the administration first kicked in.
No, that's actually not true. The numbers continue to go up. All of the data is showing that apprehensions and detentions
but
and
then
deportations
when I ask those questions, they come back and say, Pastor Samuel, we promised on a stack of Bibles, this guy was a gangbanger, this guy was trafficking, this guy was a pedophile, this guy was, and they come back and try to prove that these individuals that are being deported are not the God-fearing, hardworking people attending our parishes or our churches. There's a debate.
It's very complicated.
It is.
It's very, very complicated. I want to tell you that the story that I'm working on right now, what complicates it even more is that the Border Patrol or ICE agents then lied and said that they were never in the courtroom, were it not for the fact that there were cameras and then everybody saw. So it's like, this is part of the problem, right, is that we are hearing things and we're not sure what is the truth and what is not the truth, just in terms of it's really complicated. All right, we have 5 minutes left, so a couple of questions. Let's just take your 2 questions. Just say your question and then hand the mic to the woman behind you.
So I just wanted to comment, thank you for being here, that from your unique and powerful place in America right now, it's on,
Yep.
sorry, I'm just not talking close enough. From your unique and powerful place in America right now and your voice in the administration, are your congregants going to protest come September when deportations start at schools? And are you going to talk to Trump about that? And then secondly, I think Latinos can reteach American values to white Americans. And I think because we're the most recent immigrants, we can teach courage, we can teach low anxiety, we can teach all kinds of American values, and this might be our opportunity.
Right, these are the unspoken social skills that Latinos and Latinas have in our country that are never kind of held up. And that's beautiful. We have those. Hold on, let's get the second question.
Well, this is just a question that's sort of related but unrelated. So, do you feel that Latinos would have voted against any woman running for president because of the way they view the family?
You mean Latino evangelicals?
Yes.
Okay.
In other words, was it because of
The fact
all
that
of
she's
the
a woman.
things about Trump, but because she was a woman and the way they, you don't think so?
No.
Just a question.
No. Let me answer that one first. No, todo lo contrario. Quite the opposite. A woman, if I had a chance to speak to Secretary Clinton before, and she was great. She gave me a video for our conference. She was great. But I never had a chance to have some personal time with her. I would have said, please, in that third debate, don't say the child in the 9th month doesn't have any rights. You could say, you know, I am pro-abortion. I believe in choice. I'm a Roe v. Wade. And I think we need to find a common ground somewhere, not partial birth abortion, but I think the woman has a right to choose. When they asked her about 9 months, that 9th month, that child has no right. The moment she said, no rights, I got the text from Latino Hillary supporters who went like, Sam, sorry, can't do this. I'm not voting for either. Can't do this. And so a woman, a more moderate, not going to the extreme on practical issues, more moderate. Bill Clinton's policies. Hillary Clinton with Bill Clinton's policies in the 1990s would have occupied the White House today as it pertains to policy. She just went too far left for the Latino evangelical community, without a doubt. As it pertains to your question, if deportations take place in September of our schools, I'll be the first one out there. I'll be the first one. Number two, so I looked at a very hard right-wing think tank who asked me, your people are changing America. Your people are changing America. I go, yes, we are. Daggone it, we are. It's terrible. We have to deal with this. These values that we have, we're God-fearing, we're hardworking, terrible, this work ethic of working 14 hours a day and believing God.
With
and
16
believing,
jobs.
And believing in family. These values are anti-American, and we have to deport every single one of them as soon as possible. You're right. We're going to revitalize the values that make us great. That's why we're here.
So it's interesting because the question about getting Latino evangelicals to vote and Hillary being too kind of extreme, and I'm thinking about my students in Chicago who were all feeling the burn and who were not going to vote for Hillary because she wasn't firmly to the left. So it's like, and this is where it gets really fascinating in terms of the Latino vote and the complexity of the Latino vote. And this is where like political geekiness is like, wow, this is so interesting, but it's really complicated. I don't know, I don't believe that either party kind of really understands this.
They both suffer from myopia.
And this is a problem not just for Latino, Latinas. That's what I think we're trying to say, right? Is that certainly it affects them. But if we have Latino and Latinas, like the fastest growing demographic group apart from Asians, who are feeling disconnected, who are feeling unrepresented, who are feeling that neither party is hearing them, who are saying, I'm not even gonna vote, I did last time, or that is gonna impact our entire democracy. And that's why this conversation and your engagement is so important. And I do wanna thank you, Pastor Sam, because you knew I was gonna challenge you on a couple of things,
indeed.
but I challenge everybody. That's
enjoy
my
it.
job.
It's fun.
And I think that this notion of being able to approach difference with respect is, again, also something that is a social skill that we're bringing. So we have to wrap it up, Sammy. Si tú lo haces bien, yo luzco mejor, Sammy. That's a joke that obviously you guys didn't get, but okay, I'll explain it later. Sammy, some final thoughts for probably a community of in this audience that is like, wow, there isn't a straight path here in terms of Latino, Latina evangelicals.
The future looks, first of all, I want to acknowledge Secretary Cisneros. Es un héroe para mí. This is an iconic leader in our community, and growing up with my affinity towards politics and social change, you inspired me indeed. Thank you so much.
Secretary.
I wish we can clone you. Indeed, things would be better. The future of American politics, really? Really? It's going to be beautiful. Watch this. It's going to be the Castro brothers here, Marco Rubio here, but it's Latino names. And the Castro brothers they're amazing. I mean, they are amazing. Staunch Catholic. They've attended some of my conferences. They actually sat for an entire sermon, which is almost a miracle, by the way. Y se quedaron ahí, and tremendas personas, world changers. And then you have Marco Rubio here, who's not, on the extreme right. He has a more realistic worldview, and he listens to hip hop. I mean, this guy, he's different, right? This is the reality. The future of the American political landscape is in the hands of the Latino community. And we have to make sure we use it to reconcile, bring people together instead of tearing us apart. Hopefully these voices will rise up.
So remember that. The future of our democracy, really, because the future of this country is consistently going to be more and more Latino and Latina. So I think what we're trying to say, and we appreciate Jamie having the fact that we're here, and Monica, the fact that we're having this conversation, because more and more what we're trying to say is we are you. Maybe you don't necessarily see that, but we are you. And we're in this together. And that is the thing that inspires me, is that no nos vamos. We're not going anywhere, and I don't mean that in a bad way, like no nos vamos. Although some people are like, no nos vamos, which is okay. But it's like, we're here. We are in every single state. We are in the tiniest communities. We are here. And I guess what you can do is to recognize, to see, even the people in this community here in Aspen who are serving you, who are in the hotels, who are cooking our food, to say, gracias, where are you from? Do you speak, what language? Oh, you speak, and do you speak another language? Oh, you speak Nahuatl? Oh, wow, it's not gonna change the world. But that kind of one-on-one is very powerful. And again, across party lines, whoever you're speaking with, and for that, Pastor Sam, you speak with so much heart and you bring so much optimism that I think it is infectious. We're all infected now by the optimism. Thank you all for being here. Thanks to the Aspen Ideas Festival. Thank you, Reverend Sam.
Thank you very much.